April 25th, 2026. The air inside the grand ballroom was thick with an almost suffocating anticipation. Hundreds of the most powerful people on the planet were gathered under one roof. The perimeter was secured by 3 layers of tactical defense, cutting-edge facial recognition scanners, and a digital firewall that cost upwards of $40 million to build. It was, by all accounts and metrics, supposed to be the most secure room on Earth, a fortress made of steel, silicon, and highly trained personnel. But security, as we are about to discover in horrifying detail, is nothing but a comforting illusion. At exactly 9:14 p.m., Arthur stepped up to the podium. The crowd fell entirely silent. The cameras began to roll, broadcasting his image to millions of screens around the globe. But less than 50 feet away, standing quietly in the shadows of a dimly lit service corridor, was a man who did not exist on any guest list. A man who had bypassed every single countermeasure without firing a single shot, without raising a single alarm, and without leaving a single physical footprint. His name was Cole, and what he was about to do would permanently shatter the world's understanding of safety. How does a ghost infiltrate an impenetrable fortress? How does a single individual outsmart the most advanced surveillance network ever designed by human minds? To understand the terrifying reality of the April 25th incident, we cannot start at the end. We have to rewind the clock. We have to look at the microscopic breadcrumbs left behind by a man who was entirely made of data. We have to understand the anatomy of the perfect infiltration. 3 months earlier, the digital footprint of Cole began to materialize in the darkest, most encrypted corners of the dark web. But Cole was not a traditional threat. He did not purchase black market weapons. He did not scout physical locations with binoculars. He understood a fundamental truth about modern defense systems. You do not need to break down a heavily guarded door if you can simply convince the system to open it for you. He was a phantom architect, building a back door into reality itself. Deep inside a secure subterranean cyber intelligence division, a lead investigator named Elena was monitoring global threat metrics. Elena was a veteran of digital warfare. She was known for her obsessive, almost unnatural attention to detail, a trait that made her one of the most formidable analysts in the world. Her screen was a constant waterfall of global data, a matrix of pings, server requests, and encrypted handshakes. On February 12th at 3:14 a.m., she noticed a discrepancy. It was microscopic. A 0.4-second delay in a routine server ping related to the gala's architectural blueprints. Most analysts, even the highly trained ones, would have dismissed it as a simple network glitch, a hiccup in the routing protocol. But to Elena, it was a mathematical impossibility. The servers hosting those blueprints were quantum encrypted and running on closed-loop fiber optics. They do not lag, they do not glitch. To Elena, that 0.4-second delay was a shadow crossing the digital sun. Someone had accessed the files, downloaded them, and wiped their tracks in less than half a second. She began to pull at the thread, isolating her workstation from the main network to avoid alerting whoever was on the other side. What Elena uncovered over the next 6 relentless weeks was a masterpiece of digital manipulation. Cole was not just looking at the blueprints, he was slowly, methodically feeding false data back into the global security matrix. Cole was subtly altering the digital schematics of the event venue. He moved a virtual wall by 3 feet on the digital map. He erased a thermal sensor from the primary security grid. He rerouted the virtual display of an HVAC ventilation shaft. Piece by piece, line of code by line of code, he was creating a blind spot, an invisible corridor that only existed because the security cameras were programmed to ignore it. A blind spot that would exist in the real world on the night of the gala. As March faded into April, the tension within Elena's department reached a boiling point. She had discovered the how, but she did not have the who. Cole's identity was shielded behind an astonishing 7 layers of proxy servers, bouncing his signal from servers in Eastern Europe to abandoned satellites orbiting the Earth. Every time Elena got close, the trail dissolved into digital ash. He was a phantom, and the clock was rapidly ticking down to the night where Arthur would stand before the cameras. But Cole was not just a master of code, he was a master of human psychology. He knew that the digital blind spot was half the battle. He still needed a physical vessel to stand in that corridor. He needed a face that would not trigger the biometric alarms. Let us examine the terrifying brilliance of his physical insertion. April 22nd, 2026, 3 days before the event. Cole did not attempt to scale a fence. He did not attempt to forge a VIP pass. Instead, he utilized an entirely fabricated employee profile that he had injected into the human resources database of the venue's catering company 4 months in advance. He had generated a fake background check, fake tax records, and a fake employment history. On that Tuesday morning, Cole simply walked through the service entrance. He wore the standard catering uniform. He carried the right clearance badge. When he swiped his card, the system recognized him as a loyal employee of 2 years. He smiled at the guards. They smiled back. He was a ghost, hiding in plain sight. Over the next 3 days, he mapped his digital blind spot to the physical world, ensuring his phantom corridor was perfectly aligned. He waited patiently in the shadows he had created. Let us move to the day of the event, April 25th, 2026, 6 p.m. The outer perimeter is completely locked down. Tactical vehicles sweep the streets. Biometrics are strictly enforced at every entrance. The guest list is absolute, verified by triple redundant AI systems. But the security teams are locking the doors to a house that the wolf is already inside. 8:30 p.m. The ballroom begins to fill with high-profile guests. The atmosphere is electric, a symphony of clinking glasses and hushed conversations. Arthur is in the holding room, finalizing his remarks with his advisors. Meanwhile, in her subterranean command center miles away, Elena is running one last desperate sweep of the venue's network. She hasn't slept in 48 hours. Her eyes dart across thousands of lines of rolling code. And then, her blood runs completely cold.
Buried deep beneath a seemingly benign line of code regulating the venue's climate control, she finds it. A dormant piece of malware, a digital trigger resting quietly in the master lighting and communications control grid. It was a logic bomb designed to execute at exactly 9:15 p.m. Its purpose? To plunge the entire building into absolute darkness and sever all encrypted communications to the outside world. Elena realizes with a terrifying, heart-stopping clarity that the threat isn't approaching the building from the outside. The threat has been inside the perimeter for days. 9 p.m. The final countdown begins. Elena immediately bypasses the standard chain of command. There is no time for bureaucracy. She initiates a direct,
highly encrypted communication line to the tactical command post inside the ballroom. But as her fingers fly across the keyboard, the screen tears. Red error messages flood her monitors. Cole's malware has awakened early. It has begun to systematically isolate the internal communications network. The tactical radios inside the ballroom begin fading into heavy static. Elena is completely locked out of the building's digital infrastructure. She is trapped behind the glass screen, watching a disaster unfold, entirely unable to scream a warning. 9:14 and 45 seconds. The tension is razor sharp. Arthur steps to the podium. The applause washes over the massive room. Flashbulbs ignite, illuminating the faces of the global elite. Less than 50 feet away, in the cold, concrete service corridor, Cole checks his watch. The second hand ticks down. 60 seconds until the blackout. 60 seconds until the blind spot he designed expands to cover the entire ballroom. He reaches into his jacket. He begins to walk slowly, purposefully toward the heavy brass double doors that separate the shadows from the stage. But Cole, in all his cold, calculating brilliance, made one fatal miscalculation. He relied entirely on the absolute perfection of his digital code. He calculated every variable, every sensor, and every line of defense, but he forgot about the unpredictability of human intuition. He forgot about Elena. Realizing that the digital network was entirely compromised and that a digital warning would never reach the inside, Elena had done the unthinkable. 30 minutes prior, before the network collapsed, she had dispatched a heavily armed tactical unit. She did not send them to the main doors. She did not send them to protect Arthur directly. She sent them to the exact coordinates of the digital blind spot she had mapped out weeks prior. She didn't need to know who the ghost was. She just needed to know exactly where the ghost would be standing when the clock struck 0. 9:14 and 45 seconds. The tension is razor sharp. Cole places his gloved hand on the brass handle of the ballroom doors. He takes a slow, measured breath. Above him, the lights subtly flicker as the malware initiates its final sequence. The darkness is seconds away. But before the shadows can take hold, the heavy steel door at the far end of the service corridor behind him is violently breached. There is no massive, chaotic shootout. There is no Hollywood explosion to rock the foundation. There is only the swift, brutal, and terrifying efficiency of a Tier 1 tactical takedown in the dim light of a narrow hallway. Before Cole can even turn his head, before his mind can register that his perfect plan has been compromised, he is neutralized. He is pinned, disarmed, and secured with silent, lethal precision. Inside the ballroom, the lights stabilize. Arthur continues his speech, completely unaware that the course of history was just violently rewritten less than 50 feet away. The applause thunders on, masking the sounds of a ghost being dragged back into the reality he tried to hack. The immediate danger was over. The target was safe, but the true, lingering mystery was just beginning. When Elena's specialized team raided Cole's supposed apartment the following morning, they did not find what they expected. They did not find a crazed manifesto pinned to a wall. They did not find the chaotic remnants of a lone wolf. They found a completely empty room, a single metal desk, a chair, and a military-grade, heavily encrypted hard drive that had been wiped clean by a thermal charge the moment Cole's heart rate spiked during his arrest. Cole was an operative of unparalleled, terrifying skill. But as Elena sifted through the ashes of his digital footprint, a chilling realization washed over her. He was not acting alone.
The level of funding required to build that malware, the access to zero-day satellite exploits, the precise intelligence gathering, it all pointed to a much larger, much darker apparatus pulling the strings from the shadows. Cole was merely the weapon. Someone else aimed him. Today, Cole sits in an underground black site detention cell. He is completely silent. He has not spoken a single word, not a single syllable since the moment the handcuffs clicked shut. And Arthur continues his global duties, standing behind podiums, smiling for cameras, the world completely oblivious to how terrifyingly close it came to staring into the abyss. But the question remains, the question that keeps people like Elena awake in the dead of night. If someone like Cole could patiently bypass a $40 million defense grid without making a single sound, who is to say another ghost isn't already inside the system right now? Who is quietly rewriting the digital rules while we blindly trust the invisible walls that surround us? We live in an age where the greatest threats do not come violently crashing through the front door armed with weapons. They come armed with infinite patience. They come as lines of code. They come as the people serving your drinks, fixing your networks, standing in your blind spots. And the next time the lights flicker in a secure room, you might want to look at the shadows and ask yourself, why?